I'm your host, Scott Norton, and welcome to At Large. On this show, I talk to world-class creatives who use business to bring their ideas to life. We'll hear about their creative practices, their most interesting stories, and the lessons that'll inspire you the way that they've inspired me. Our guest today is Sophia Amoruso, founder of the first internet-native fashion brand, Nasty Gal, and subsequently 3 other businesses, including Trust Fund, her VC firm. She also coined the term Girlboss, which is the title of her best-selling memoir. I admire Sophia for her courage and action in the face of fear. Fear of failure and fear of not looking good can be overwhelming to the point of paralysis. But today we'll get into how Sophia has achieved buoyancy to rise above these fears. Good brands transcend the reality of the businesses they represent. And in this show, she talks about what it's like for her personal brand to decouple from her lived experience, to the extent of taking her company through bankruptcy, just as Netflix debuted a series on her company's success. Talk about cognitive dissonance. Sophia and I talk about the scrutiny put on female leaders, her recent Rumspringa, what she thinks is cool right now in fashion and music, and I ask her to roast my outfit. Enjoy my conversation with Sophia Amoruso, a refreshingly real storyteller and entrepreneur who's dedicated to living on her own terms. Sophia, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful to have you here.
Hollywood.
Here we are in Hollywood.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, we're trialing out a new studio and it looks good and sounds good.
It looks good.
We've, tried to decorate the set to our best ability.
You've got this whole thing.
Yeah, I got the mic flags
like a
up.
Pro? Is that what it's? Wow.
Yeah, that's it's an industry term.
Yeah,
I know these things because I'm a D-list celebrity.
No, you're Sir Kensington. What are you talking about? You've been knighted.
I want to start by telling you why you're such an inspiration to me. And if we may start with a little bit of that.
Cool, thanks.
And it's because you have started 4 businesses and brands that are all contemporaneously still operating and still out there in the world. And that's remarkable.
Yeah, I've never actually had anyone tell me that, and I don't think I realized it.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to reflect it back to you. And what's so incredible about it isn't just like the quantity, right, or the volume, but it's how you've been able to keep building. You've done something and then you've gathered yourself up and you've kept building. And that kind of like builder's instinct I find really inspirational because I often personally can just get so wrapped up in self-doubt and trying to think that my next thing has to be bigger than my last thing, or that by trying and failing at something, it will somehow like move me backwards. But you seem to not have been governed by that fear.
I'm fearful every day, but I have a question for you. So you said, I'm afraid that if the next thing that I do isn't bigger than the last thing, like that would look like a failure. Do you ever want to do anything bigger than the last thing? Like, is it worth it to you? Like you did a big thing and that's, I've never done anything bigger than my first thing. Part of that, I think it's actually very intentional. And on the outside, it looks like you're failing if you don't just keep doing bigger and bigger things, right? Like, I guess it looks like I'm not failing because I'm doing things. But that's just an interesting thing that we tell ourselves. I don't want to do another thing bigger than Nasty Gal because I know what comes with it. Like, would you?
Well, there was a time where I would have said absolutely not.
Yeah.
And when I was rolling off of my time at Sir Kensington's, I had spent 10 years there as a founder and ultimately as the CEO and kind of the first cheerleader. And I felt like I had overdosed on leadership. I was like done leading, done managing people, done being responsible and having the buck stop with me. And I felt so free after leaving that. And as time has gone on and I've constructed a life where the stakes are a little bit lower, I've found myself itching to say, well, actually, damn, like, what if I give that leadership thing a try one more time? Or like, what if I like build something else that's like more consequential?
Yeah.
And I'm, to be totally honest, like I'm wrestling with, does that come from some sort of a status-seeking anxiety? Does it come from some deep-seated fear of death, or is it actually a contribution that I want to make? I'm trying to figure out like how healthy
Those
it is.
are good questions.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know I'm not the interviewer, but when you said that, I'm just like, I was curious because you've built something big, and it's always interesting to hear someone who's built something and had an exit think about like what's next, because a lot of people just they're like real masochists, and they keep
right.
Like, I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, I have a piddly venture fund. I'm not going to like make, that much money on my $5 million venture fund, in 10 years, whenever it matures and returns capital to investors. And he's like, I don't know, you invest in a whatever, OpenAI, whatever, you can make like 25 million or something. I'd be like, that sounds cool. I'd be happy with that. And he was like, no, you wouldn't. And I was like, I'm happy with what I have. And so that means I would be happy with $25 million. And he was like, my number keeps moving. And this guy has, I don't know what, like last time I hung out with him, I like hopped a ride on, a private plane he had chartered.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like houses he's like $25 million houses. So it's really just interesting to hear the perspective of different founders, because some people it's just this like void that you can't fill or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an endless treadmill. And I'm not one of these people with like a quote unquote number. Like I've never been wired like that.
Yeah.
Some people have a number, and that's like part of what they think about every day. And that's like, they almost see having that as like being healthy, because it's like, oh yeah, once I get there, then they'll stop. But a theme of this show that we've heard is that, you'll never be satisfied with what you think will satisfy you. At least those kind of material things. And so for me, I'm trying to figure out, it's more about contributing and spending my time and feeling like I'm having an impact. Yeah. So that's more the question.
Well, it's a great place to be, where you get to question your motives beyond survival.
Highly fortunate. Yeah. Yes. Very grateful for that. I'm curious for you though, as you have been building these 4 businesses, really, maybe we focus on the 3 after Nasty Gal. Okay. Is that relationship with fear of failure like something you've had to naturally work on, or is it something that you're able to put blinders on and build and have a healthy relationship with? Like, tell me about the feeling of getting enough conviction to actually put something into the world.
I feel like when you failed, or quote unquote failed, as big as I did with my first business, that everything else just feels like the afterlife. Like once you're dead, you can't be killed again. Like I'm just haunting myself. I'm just like Beetlejuice. I'm like, haha, like what, I get to bring all those things I learned into whatever I do next. I'm not trying to build $100 million revenue, whatever business, and raise $50 million of venture capital and have hundreds of employees. Like, so I feel like I'm playing my strengths with with what the type of businesses I'm building, the content of what it is, how I get to make an impact, where I spend my time. And so that all feels very aligned, and it feels relatively simple and straightforward. I'm not trying to reinvent any kind of like business model, or, it's like I have an online course in a venture fund. Like there's venture math, like you can do it a bunch of different ways, but you just pick a model and slice it up and invest in a certain number of companies. And, again, like it's not that simple, but so, I'm fearful all the time, but it's like, what are the real consequences, I guess?
Right. What's the worst that could happen?
The question that you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
I'm more afraid of being held accountable to things that I didn't sign up to be held accountable for unfairly. And so, even it's just like with the Girlboss thing, not living up to whatever Girlboss was or was supposed to be, because I was on the cover of a pink book and I looked like I knew what was up. And I wrote this 14 years ago, 12 years ago, in my 20s. It came out, it was published almost 11 years ago.
Yeah, in 2014, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like no one will ever live up to whatever other people think like this perfect girl boss is. For example, I have a newsletter. I don't think that's shooting super high. It's not like I'm not, rolling in the dough on my Substack newsletter. Some people are. I spent a lot of time on it, and I did this holiday shopping guide kind of like, just here's some cool stuff to buy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things, and the one thing that I like didn't own and actually wouldn't use that I was like, oh, this is cool and maybe novel to throw in here, were some like crypto fingernails that when you bopped it on someone's iPhone, it pulled up your social profile.
Mm.
And I used the language kind of goofy but cute, blah, 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 good for conferences, something like that. This girl that I don't know.
Who created them?
Who makes stuff that connects you to garbage social media that rots your brain and then ends up in landfills. Sorry, I have like no vitriol for this, but this is like the day before Thanksgiving. Someone screenshotting and sending this to me.
Yeah.
Some girl across the world is calling me out for using the word goofy but cute. And I think there's a generational thing. Like goofy is more of an insult if I'm 40, but like other people are like,
goofy's pretty anodyne in my world. It's not exactly an insult.
It's not an insult. It's like goofy but cute. Like it is goofy. Can you, in the grand perspective of things that you can possibly put it, it's like you could say that Sir Kensington's is goofy.
Absolutely.
Like whatever. It's like, who cares?
Yes.
Like, and her tweet was like, love, thanks for including me in your shopping guide, but it's not very girl boss to call a woman founder's product goofy. This is so many degrees removed from someone who's actually in my life. Can you imagine what it's like to be held accountable by people you're actually employing?
Yes.
That's a big reason why like I don't even want employees. Like, so yeah, I'm playing my strengths by not doing bigger things, but also I don't want to fucking deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't win.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. I hear you. And I think that being accountable, there's a saying that leadership is a pie eating contest and the first place prize is more pie. And you can kind of feel like, oh, I've built something, I've done good, I put some, and then it's like, well, that's more leadership, right? More people, more responsibility, and it spirals, right? And you end up building, could be a house of cards, right? Some people can pull it off, but I think ultimately that a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves as having to be professional managers, and that is oftentimes comes a lot of responsibilities that were unforeseen.
Yeah.
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 I don't know about unfair in that case, but definitely unforeseen.
I want to be like a white label everything. Can I have like someone else operate the thing and manage the people, and I'll be like, hey, from like far away, and then I can't like get hassled for.
Absolutely. I think you can construct whatever you want. I think you can definitely be like guest creative director.
Find me someone who's done all the R&D and has the whatever.
Maybe there's something like that in our future.
Maybe.
Yeah. I know that for you, Nasty Gal is like in the past, but it is such rich territory, and it is so consequential to your story. And so that story, you have told that story has been told. Like there's podcasts and TV shows and all sorts of stuff that people can read and listen to. But I'm curious to understand, what was like the big idea that you built Nasty Gal around? What was the insight that you had that others didn't see as you were going beyond being a merchant, right? Going beyond just the pure finding something, marking it up and selling it in a new context? What was the big idea?
Yeah. Well, it was a small idea initially, which was, how can I avoid working for other people? I was 22 and I was working in the lobby of an art school, checking student IDs because I needed to get health insurance, which you couldn't get without an employer involved if you had a pre-existing condition. I had a hernia I needed to get fixed. So the big idea was, how can I not work these crappy jobs anymore? And in my effort to avoid work, I started something that I actually really enjoyed, and never realized that every little thing I do if I do a better job, I actually feel the results. Like if I straightened a shoe in a shoe store a little more straight on the shelf than I did the day prior, like nothing changed. Like there was no feedback loop. But as an entrepreneur, you get this feedback loop, and I didn't realize that was an entrepreneurial thing, or that I had never even connected like my like intellect and creativity and any kind of outcome ever before. I think the insight I had with Nasty Gal, to answer your question, ultimately, like what it just kind of emerged naturally, is just that I have this oblique experience that is not traditional as someone who started a brand or business, or, you know, it's like a lot of the founders you see starting businesses have more traditional backgrounds than me, or they went to school, or they're more influenced by pop culture. Like I was a punk. Like I still listen to like a lot of heavy metal. I listen to a lot of abrasive music and challenging music. And I think music was like a big inspiration for me. But Nasty Gal was a first in that I didn't just curate the clothing. I created a whole world around it.
Yes. You built a world. Built a world. And at the time, I mean, when I left eBay and launched the website, we're talking like maybe early 2008. Mm-hmm. It could have been late 2007. Yeah, but around then.
No, it would have been like mid 2008, something like that. Like Facebook was just emerging. But like when you went to go buy a t-shirt or a dress online, it was on a model and their face was cut off and there were no accessories. At Nasty Gal, it was a girl who looked like she could be your friend. She was pretty, but she wasn't so pretty that she alienated you. It wasn't high fashion. It was aspirational. You wanted to hang out with her. And she looked like someone who might be like, cool, let's go hang out. And so it was also accessible in that way. And there was like a levity to it and a humor in the copywriting, and it very much drew you in.
Yes.
A lot of fashion pushes you out and doesn't include you, and for some reason people love that, and they love standing in lines, like they love having to prove themselves and then pay to get in. Like fuck that. Like I canceled all my members clubs. But it was that when someone bought a motorcycle jacket, a leather motorcycle jacket on Nasty Gal, their first leather motorcycle jacket, they were like, this is a promise to my more confident, irreverent self that I'm going to go do things that are slightly more bold. And yeah, it was edgy, and it was, you could reduce it to a lot of things, and everything looks like Nasty Gal now. But at the time, there were no pure play, e-com. Now it's called direct to consumer. It wasn't even called that.
Right.
Brands that looked remotely like it, where, you know, it was a feeling. Like it was, Nasty Gal was like, it was an emotional purchase. And when you got it in the mail, it was emotional.
Yes.
Like, and if something came late or they got the wrong thing, it was like their best friend stabbed you had stabbed them in the back. You know, it was like that level of like loyalty and
intimacy,
love, and it played a role in people's lives.
Wow. And I think as you described that, I realized that you really were the first internet native fashion world building brand.
I'd like to think that this guy Dimitri, wait, was this his name? Some great marketer told me once that great brands give people permission to be themselves. And it sounds really lame that you'd have to buy something to feel like you have permission to be yourself.
Yeah.
But
is this like Patagonia Urban Outfitters, Dimitri?
It was Patagonia. Yeah. I met him. I think I tried to recruit him for like a very long time.
Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And I think, you know, Nasty Gal was I'm a Nasty Gal, Girlboss was I'm a Girlboss.
Yes.
And to create brands where people start a sentence with I am and end it with the name of your brand is kind of like much of a coup as you can, you know, pull off. It's not a sentence.
as much of a coup that you can pull off.
It's like peak brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's in my like 10 years building a brand, I couldn't put it into words at the beginning, but by the end I realized that people don't buy things, they buy stories about themselves. And people, they buy things and they participate in things to assemble their own identity. There are all these different building blocks to our identity. When you were building like and growing the business, what was your fuel, like your emotional fuel on a daily basis?
To see like, oh wow, people like this. Let me go buy something I think they might like. Oh wow, they bought more of it. Okay, well if we do this differently, the outcome changes. And then, I mean, at a certain point, it was just this beast, and I was trying to decode what the company needed. It's like having a baby that can't talk, being like, I'm sick, and you're like, what's wrong with you? You know, how can I diagnose this if I don't even know what a company needs? I'd never worked in an office. I had never managed anybody. I didn't know what leadership was. The only offices I've worked at, my name has been on the lease of. When I raised $50 million, I had never made a PowerPoint presentation. The Associated Index Ventures did.
Wow.
And propped me up in front of the partnership and was like, here, like, tell the truth. And I did. And they handed me $50 million. Like, that's probably not super responsible. Very naive on my part. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But, like, I was as cute and serendipitous and rags to riches and American dream story, you know, mine is. I wish I had the chops that a lot of, like, that anyone would, having worked in any company, in any startup, or even having had a bad boss in a corporate environment. They could at least empathize with what the people who work for them might need.
I understand.
And exposure to great leadership is even better. But there's like nothing for me to even model. And I didn't need leadership. I was like, the company needs this. And I just did it. I did it. And then I thought I'd hire people that I paid more money than I'd ever made before, that they would go diagnose it and fix it. And so my job full time was just trying to decode something that I didn't understand as the goalpost changed. You know, it was like, it changed so rapidly. It was like year one being like eBay was like 75K, year two was like 250, then it was like 1.1, and then I was looking at our pitch deck. I thought it was 6.5, but it could have gone from like 6.5 to 28 or something insane. I thought it went from 6.5 to 12 to 28, but I found the deck that I raised $50 million with, and it is so primitive looking.
Yeah, the one that the associate built?
The number, yeah, and the numbers, I can find it on my phone like right now, but because I texted.
I have 2011 at 22.9 million in sales. And then
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, but we were on a run, honestly, like it didn't feel like a choice. So
I know exactly
like
what you mean.
When something's, you know, a rocket ship, you just gotta, it's hard enough just to stay on board. I wish there had been more adversity early on in the business, because I would have had some cross training of, you know, how to deal with that before the company got so big and things were so complex that trying to solve those problems at scale was just like, it was just so far beyond my ability. So in some ways I wish it had moved slower, or there were more road bumps, I guess, along the way. That would have given me time to develop those chops, because when everything's exploding and it's up and to the right, like, you don't know what's happening under the hood. And when the tide recedes, you see all the like weird soda cans and like dead crabs and whatever murky shit that's always there.
Yeah.
You just don't know it's there until, you know, revenue goes down, you have to lay people off, and you're like, holy shit, and people are talking about experiences that I didn't know they were having in this company, because they were having so much fun. Like, they didn't, I don't know, nobody complained.
Yeah.
it's just, you know.
Yeah, and when you're in a winning team and everything is up and to the right, a lot of these things the blemishes are covered up.
Everyone's happy, yeah.
I have this saying like that, like being in a startup or running a startup, you're simultaneously killing it and you're getting killed. So, you know, it's easy to say like, okay, we're growing, you know, sales are up, we have more products, like customers love us, we're getting more press, like we're killing it, and like that's the story. And then it's also kind of easy to slip into this narrative of like, I can't, like I have employees leaving, like I can't attract this talent, like, you know, are we going to raise this round? We're running out of money. And, you know, a lot of founders live in cognitive dissonance of going out there and saying, you know, like believing themselves, but also sharing the message that they're killing it. And also just taking kind of some optimism and some inspiration from the fact that things are going well. But then also you've got this cognitive dissonance from all the challenges and how the odds are stacked against you. And I feel like you have experienced this at an absolutely magnified scale because like, you know, you've talked about before how basically simultaneously you published #Girlboss, the book, you know, you're on the cover, it becomes a New York Times bestseller. And then later that year, you're doing layoffs. And then, you know, you raise like $50 million like on top of that, and you're on the cover of Forbes, and then all of a sudden you start to run into these cash challenges, fundraising challenges, and it culminates with you deciding to move into Chapter 11 bankruptcy on the same day that you're addressing 1,000 women in Australia about the incredible leader that you are and about the incredible company that you built. And then it goes on to a Netflix show telling your story and about your story. Talk to me about how did you make it through that cognitive dissonance, and how were you able to basically process that in the wake of it?
The chronology of all of that is just so like fucked because, I mean, yeah, raised $50 million in, I think maybe earlier, mid 2012.
2012, yeah.
By the beginning of 2014, I'd published a book, spent 18 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Then they're making a Netflix series about it, you know, over the next, whatever, year and a half. It takes a little while to sell it. So now there's this whole story of this girl starting an eBay store called Nasty Gal in San Francisco happening. Well, everything still seemed, we had a few layoffs, but it wasn't like, you know, the company was still going and I was still on my
externally, it was
still on my victory lap, and externally was killing it. And then by early 2015, I think I had hired a CEO because I was like, this job is just, I'm creative. I am not, don't want to be a CEO, don't want to manage pissing contests and, you know, executive, you know, disagreements and stuff politics that I just did not understand, didn't want to deal with. And so, then by the beginning of I would say, I got married in 2015 as well to someone I had been dating for 4 years, known since I was like 19. And by like June of 2016, I think I was on the cover of Forbes as one of America's richest self-made women, richer than Beyonce, they said, because I was worth like $280 million on paper.
Right.
I think Beyonce actually gets paid.
I think Beyonce probably has a good amount of cash.
Yeah.
Versus startup stock.
Yeah. I have a lot in real estate, but cash is a whole other thing. There was a conflation of who I was as the girl boss, who I was as an actual CEO, who I was as a real person, and this slightly abrasive character that was portraying me on a scripted comedy with lots of creative license.
Yes.
That I didn't read. I didn't read the script. I didn't have script approval. I was too busy dealing with my company. And I actually am so vain that I thought it would be a bad look to review the scripts. Like, I don't want to be like, I wouldn't have said it like that. Like, I feel like if I walk by a window when I'm walking down the street and I want to check myself out, I would rather look like shit than have someone see me check myself out in public.
I get it.
Like, I'm actually like, there's a level of, it's like meta vanity.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because the nasty gal, she doesn't care how she looks.
It's just not true. It's just not true.
The nasty gal's not going to review the script. That's not punk rock.
We're complex people.
Yeah.
Right. Of course I cared, but I also couldn't. I had learned the hard way that creative people don't want to be. You have to let them like do their jobs. And this wasn't even my team. It was a team of writers in a room that, you know, I was a producer by way of having written the book, and it would have been really ugly for me to try to get involved, at least I think. So yeah, that was the crescendo. Wasn't when Nasty Gal fell apart. The real kind of deafening like pitch of this dissonance you're talking about, while, you know, I'm on a red carpet with Charlize Theron, who produced the show, and, you know, wow, there's a Netflix series being made about my life. All the while, you know, there's all of this, you know, questioning and criticism about who I actually am, because now there's this fictional portrayal of me on TV, and all these random people learning about this girl who started Nasty Gal when, like, it had been so long since I did that, and I was, like, gone. That was fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said you're so inspirational, because it's remarkable to me that you were able to gather yourself up and start Girlboss coming out of that. But I think it's also, as you tell the story, I realize, you know, what great brands are is they're stories that transcend reality. There's stories that transcend kind of the physicality of a product or the day-to-day experience of a service, right? And in some ways, your story first of all, it was about you, so it's very personal, but your story, it got a life of its own, and it ran away, you know, in a lot of ways, and without your control. And that must have been really unnerving.
It is really unnerving. You know, I mean, I think the beauty of it is that my story gave a lot of women license to see themselves in the shoes of someone who didn't have the pedigree, who did start a business, who did make it really far, who was, you know, unconventional and irreverent and weird, and not this kind of cookie cutter profile of what a business owner could look like. And this, you know, book came out around the time that, you know, there's all these other tools emerging, and people could become freelancers, and, you know, now Shopify makes it so easy, and Gusto and JustWorks make it easy to employ people and do benefits, and all this shit was like Xeroxes when I was building Nasty Gal. And by the time it failed, you know, years after that book inspired them, and my story had inspired them even years before that, they had probably, a lot of them had gone and done, you know, taken big swings. And even though on the public stage there was criticism, the, you know, 500,000 people who read the book, and even more who didn't read the book, had their own challenges. And so seeing my failure, if that's what you want to call it, I don't have a better word for it, even made them feel better about the challenges they had experienced as they went and did big new things.
That's a good point.
And so they stuck around.
That's a good point.
Like the girls who read the book, you know, they were there. Like I put on a conference a few months after the company went bankrupt in LA called the Girlboss Rally. Sold out, you know, had amazing people come and speak. Like everybody showed up for me. The people in my world, the people who actually mattered, and the women who shopped with me and the women who read the book, like they didn't go anywhere. There's just this external, it was all the people who didn't know me and probably hadn't read the book,
right,
who were criticizing or pontificating or reporting on what had happened.
Yeah.
And they weren't even fucking reading it.
And that's, I mean,
like they didn't care.
Yeah. And again, that's why it's an inspiration, is because you survived and you dusted yourself off. Why do you think that female leaders, specifically young female leaders, get picked on so much?
I mean, I think we live in a culture of misogyny. So I think that's just, it permeates everything. There are less of us, and there's like less of us to point at. I think when, you know, a guy kind of fucks up, it's like, okay, we see guys all the time. There's lots of them, whatever. When a woman, even if she doesn't fuck up, she's going to be criticized in a way that's, you know, just it's scrutinized.
Held to a higher standard.
Yeah, held to a higher standard. And if you have drive a high achieving culture and you want people to work hard, you're toxic. You know, if you're a dude it's a little bit more normal that you would want, it's like, that you would founder mode, whatever.
Yes.
That whole thing.
Yes.
That you would expect people to work hard. But I think people think women are supposed to build utopian cultures for women.
Yes.
And when nobody lives up to that, because nobody's perfect and everything institutional we're talking about misogyny and all the intersections of race and age and ability or whatever find their way into a company, like you can't manage the like nuance of that, like nobody can, but people expect you and your company to somehow cure that.
Yes.
Even though it permeates everything.
Yes. I completely agree.
And that's really challenging
Mm-hmm.
because like nobody can do that. And especially when your platform has anything to do with women,
Mm-hmm.
you're really, you're really letting people down if you can't create a place where they're happy and feel included and whatever it is all the time. But it's like, that's also just the nature of a workplace.
Right.
It's your job to make difficult decisions. So on top of all of that, when you have to make difficult decisions, you're just kind of like evil.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
When there are decisions that any CEO has to make.
I think a lot of the narratives when female leaders start to gain success and start to gain notoriety in the press, their story, the narrative from the beginning is this counterpositioning, right? That they're not only proving people wrong, but they're also the kinder, gentler leader building this utopian society. And so the stakes are higher. Mm-hmm. And of course, as you said, nobody can live up to that. And so almost the trap is set in a way that...
Also, this generation is like...
Which one? There's three now.
I don't even know because I don't want to employ people.
Yeah.
But they want like pet sick days and things, It's like you get your period and they want like a week off or something. And it's like...
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't...
Kids these days.
I don't know. I don't get it. I'm kind of a boomer in that way. I will and have been sensitive to it, regardless of my inability to really relate completely.
But you got to draw the line.
But it's just that makes it really hard as well, is that, if people don't feel like, you live in, like your company is like building a spa for... employees on a day-to-day basis where they get to rest as much as they work, then, you're also evil.
Yeah.
That being said, I have a desire for work-life balance. Like, as I've gotten older, like I understand the need for that.
Well, and I think great leaders can create an environment, or great cultures are ones that people realize that the expectations of them are greater than what even they can imagine, and they can push through and feel friction, but also just enjoy getting things done and enjoy accomplishing things. And I think that's a very different mindset than feeling like every grievance or every accommodation, needs to be met.
Yeah, you don't want it to feel like a punitive environment, but what great leadership is getting people excited about the mission and including them on the business. Mm-hmm. So if we hit these numbers, it means this. If we get into target, like this is what it means for the business. Like this is what it means for our bonuses. This is what ultimately people want to feel like their jobs are secure and they can take care of like their kids. Mm-hmm. And yes, not burn out and kill themselves for a business that isn't theirs.
Right.
I do think that generation's kind of over, but when you lead with purpose, and that purpose can just be making people laugh. It's like every business solves some kind of a problem. And if you can tell the stories of the people who are ultimately benefiting from what it is that you're creating and build empathy with your team, to connect them to the results of what it is that they're spending their time on, when their head is, down at their desk and they don't really see the bigger impact of what it is that they're making, people give you a lot of grace and they're super bought in. When it feels like a job and they feel like a cog and they don't like have exposure to the greater impact of what they're making, it's a lot. You want people to be inspired.
Yes. Which is a very different thing than doggy sick days, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
And, to play devil's advocate, because I think I kind of sounded like a dick, is like, it doesn't matter when someone's butt is in a chair if they get the job done. That's the thing. I mean, COVID completely upended that. At Girlboss, we worked from home on Fridays in 2017, 18, which was wild.
Yes.
Like nobody did that. But like if you got your job done, I don't, it's just kind of doesn't matter how many hours a week you're doing it. And of course, like if you want to, be promoted, bring ideas to the table. But even then, you don't have to work 24 hours a day. It's just, be proactive and whatever.
I'd love to switch gears more, bring us to the present. And you've recently made some kind of changes in your life to simplify. And so would love to talk about those decisions and the recent time you spent in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, I've probably spent more time in Europe over the last 6 months than I have here.
On your Rumspringa, as you called it, which is one of my favorite terms.
Yeah, some people are like, what's that? How do you describe a Rumspringa?
Well, I'll tell, I mean, as I understand it, the Amish have a practice of basically showing people what the sinful outside world is. And you go out and as an Amish person experience the outside world, and that's called a Rumspringa. And you're allowed to drink and smoke. And then I think the vast majority of them come back. And so I describe a Rumspringa as a walkabout.
Yeah.
With a walkabout with probably a bit more celebration and partying than your average 6-month period.
I've done very little to no partying. Like I go to parties, like party is a noun and not a verb for me. I'm fun, but it's like, I don't know, I'll drink, but I don't. Like partying is like staying up till 5 a.m. And I'm just like, oh God, wow, how do people do that? It's amazing. Never been to Ibiza. So there's also that, I don't know what, like where people party. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun. And I think like, I've worked really hard in my career. I'd been in the same house for 10 years, bought my house when I was 28 and remodeled it, turned 40 in April, spent 3 weeks in Europe and was like, spent a week in Venice and Sicily, and then was in London staying with a friend, and was like, holy shit, like I really love this place and I can be in Italy in 2 hours. That's crazy.
It's incredible.
2 hours from LA is Joshua Tree, which is pretty, but I don't need to go that many times. 2 hours from London is everything.
So many places.
Everything. So
Paris on the Eurostar. A little longer than
right? Yeah. You just channel over
anywhere.
Yeah, fly to anywhere.
I love London.
I value spontaneity. I think it's like the ultimate luxury. I don't think planning a trip 6 months from now is like, of course it's a luxury, but the ability to be like, I'm going, let's go to see the Northern Lights on a Thursday and leave on a Friday. You can do that there. Mm-hmm. Like bucket list items are drops in the bucket for me at least right now.
Do you consider yourself spending a good amount of time in London, or is that Rumspringa chapter over?
No, I'm moving.
Oh, you're moving to London?
I signed a lease.
It's in what part of town?
Westbourne Grove, which is in Notting Hill.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm like a block off of Westbourne Grove. And I just spent the last 2.5 months there riding Lime bikes.
Love it.
I love riding.
Those bikes are great.
Fucking Lime bikes.
Yes.
Like, wait a second. I can pick up a bike, get on it, be someplace faster than the train.
And London's
have a
small.
whole fun experience.
Yeah. It's a great city.
It's just a different world because the freelance economy has risen and that so many more, average people, just back to, Girlboss, the book, and, just the whole world. Like, everybody wants to work for themselves. There's the creator economy. People are solopreneurs or side hustlers, and I think they are consumers more than they are some executive.
It's great insight.
At a corporate business.
The quote-unquote consumerization of enterprise. I think we've all heard that, but I think yours is much more eloquently put.
Well, I know how I can help because
Yes.
I understand that psychology.
Yes.
And the highly educated technical founders, largely that I'm investing in.
Yeah, this is the white labeling you talked about in the beginning.
Not all of them understand that power
Right.
or how to create that kind of messaging. And
right. You're an important
And so
piece.
I'm able to kind of, bridge my experience in consumer and empathy with the end consumer of their products because I would have used those products. And then can amplify it to, it's like I've got 630,000 Instagram followers who are ambitious women and people who were like, oh shit, I need that.
Absolutely.
So it's
yeah,
just,
when
there's
I went
like
to
a
check
full
your
stack
Instagram
of
story,
it's like a big advantage.
It was all companies you had invested in. You're like, buy this Parisian merchandise, buy an SMB.
Yeah.
So it's very effective.
Yeah.
So we're going to move to the quickfire round.
Okay.
Have a little fun. We call this at large and off the cuff.
Cool.
So you answer quickly. Don't think too much about it.
Okay.
We asked everyone the same question to start, which is, are you glad social media exists or do you wish it never existed?
I wish it never existed.
Great. Very interesting. What is your media diet? What are some things that you read, watch, listen?
Got my Spotify Wrapped today.
I was just going to ask about that. What's on your Spotify Wrapped?
The number one artist, I just listened to this song over and over again, so it's not even the breadth of his work.
Okay.
Jackson C. Frank.
Okay.
It's just really...
That's the artist?
Yeah.
What's the song title?
Cover Me in Roses.
Great.
And it's just kind of, it's folk, but it's really bad, recording quality. It's probably from the 70s is my guess.
Cool.
Piero Umiliani,
Ooh.
which is an Italian, largely soundtrack composer, but really beautiful.
Oh, great.
Really beautiful music.
Well, definitely share
I'd have to
that
look
out.
at the rest, but of all the algorithms, I am most protective of and proud of my Spotify algorithm. If someone sends me a song and I don't know what it's going to be, I pull it up on YouTube because it'll fuck.
Oh, because you don't want record
I don't want it to.
Of it
I don't want it to
tampering with your tightly
I don't want it
controlled-
to dirty up what I know it's going to serve up that I will like. So I'm very protective.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite tattoos? Because you have a lot of tattoos, right?
I have one. I dated this guy for 3 months, and I got his name tattooed on me for his birthday. He doesn't have my name. I was like, "Happy birthday," and it says Joe, and it's really big on my torso.
My gosh!
But it's funny to me. It's it's just funny. It's Joe.
Yeah.
It's so dumb in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe's
it's generic.
Joe's awesome. It was a good run. It was right after I had gotten out of a 5.5-year relationship, but I just think that's funny, and it's kind of a funny story. And my tattoos are all just kind of unpremeditated.
Well, spontaneity is a luxury.
Spontaneous, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten one since the Joe one because I really need to. I don't want to. I just was like, this is maybe that was. I don't know.
How long ago was that?
That was beginning of 2022.
Okay. Yeah. So 2 years
I mean,
ago.
I'm still a grown adult.
Yeah.
I'm 38 or
Yeah.
37 or something. So
Yeah.
old enough to know better, but I like it. I think it's funny.
Yeah. I mean,
It's funny.
It doesn't hurt anybody. I know you're, again, a little bit distant from Nasty Gal, but any designers you like who are up and coming that you want to shout out?
Good question. There's a bag company out of Paris called Elleme, Elleme, and they make really beautiful handbags. What am I wearing right now? Emerging. What I'm wearing, this brand sent me something. I get free clothes sometimes because I
I'm sure.
influence
Yeah.
the clothes.
Yeah.
So this brand is called Align, but it's Aligne.
Yeah, that sounds kind of French.
And it's I don't know where
Aligne?
I don't know where they're from.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Well, I have no idea, but
But
you could pronounce it like that.
a lot of stuff that's
It's a nice, what is that, salvage denim? Like a raw denim?
I don't know.
Yeah. Some kind of denim.
Yeah, some kind of denim, but actually fits in the waist. A lot of this stuff I feel just is supposed to be shaped, but then it's still kind of big.
Boxy?
Yeah. My earrings are from Amazon. I've bought like sunglasses on Amazon recently. Like I'm okay with like a jewelry dupe.
Yeah.
Forgot to wear rings. What else? Yeah, I can't think of it. You Beauty makes really good skincare.
Oh, okay. That's a good shout.
It's Tina Chen Craig. Really, really good.
Okay, now it's my turn.
Okay.
So because you mentioned it twice on the show, at least, the motorcycle jacket.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm thinking, like, I'm interviewing Sophia Nasty Gal. So I brought a leather motorcycle jacket to wear.
Who makes that?
This is from a company called The Arrivals. Did
Oh,
you
yeah.
ever cross paths with them?
Yeah, I have a jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah. They make good.
Cal Vapuri is the co-founder, the guy that I know back from the New York days, and
That's really nice.
And so, it's a good look, and I'm wondering if you could just roast my outfit.
I don't want to roast your outfit.
Or critique it.
No.
No?
No. I don't know about the sunglasses.
Okay, there you go. That was the roast I needed.
I think your face, I don't know if they're the right shape for your face.
You and my wife are the only two people that agree on that. Everybody else loves these sunglasses.
Really?
But she's like, those look terrible. And you know what? You're both right.
I don't know. I wouldn't wear such a neutrally kind of shirt with the motorcycle jacket.
So something like white.
I would wear black or white.
Black or white,
Like
yeah.
a little more classic.
Yep.
Because that's more like kind of beachy almost color. I don't even know how I would describe. It's kind of like a periwinkle. I don't know.
Yeah, the dusty periwinkle is how I would call this as well. And,
yeah.
And you're right. This is very, west side of LA, Santa Monica, and this is downtown.
I think
so if I'm going to go full James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, I got to go white or black.
I think white or black would make more sense with the jacket. But beyond that, that's I don't have any.
Well, thanks.
No notes.
And then we finish every episode by asking everyone for one good recipe. What is one thing that you like to cook, and can you walk us through it?
Okay, you know what? I used to have a personal trainer. His name's Harley Pasternak, and he's a long time ago.
He's like a famous personal trainer.
Yeah. And there's this pancake thing. It's literally rolled oats that you don't cook, egg whites. I'll put like cinnamon in there and maybe a little salt. You mix it up, put it in a pan, and then shape it into a pancake, whatever, flip it over, pull it out, and put like maple syrup and applesauce on top.
Sounds great.
And it's really healthy. And it actually tastes really good.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of good. I think it's
high in fiber, get some protein.
Yep. So easy.
Not a lot of simple carbs.
It's a really weird recipe, but
that sounds
I
great.
can thank Harley Pasternak for that one.
Yeah. My kids love pancakes, so I'm going to give that one a try.
It's I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's easy.
Yeah. Worth a
It's
shot.
good. Worth a shot.
Well, thank you so much, Sophia.
Yes.
You've been such a delight as a
Thanks
guest.
for having me.
Thank you for tuning into At Large. Today's episode was produced by Sick Bird Productions. Our theme song is Son of Sanford by Motion Worker. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and by email at atlargeshow.com. Follow me at SWH Norton on Instagram and Twitter, and DM me about the guests you want to hear on the show.